to your earliest memory of getting that bug for the ocean? Because I know there's a lot of people in the audience tonight who've got that bug too.
Well, I've got a pretty bad memory, like compared to my brother who remembers everything in his entire life. Pretty much don't remember anything until we moved to Hawaii. And we had been coming here since I was a very young kid. My dad was a surfer and a lifeguard in La Jolla, California. And he had been coming here and living on the North Shore and riding with Butch Van Arsdale and those guys since '58, I think was the first time he came here. And had a couple of kids and was a genetics major at UC Berkeley, graduated there and took the first teaching job that he could find in Hawaii and moved the family over here when I was 4 years old. And he was teaching at Roosevelt High School, still surfing every day after school. And so I pretty much grew up at the beach, and we moved right away to Kailua. And so I grew up surfing Kailua shore break and at the beach every day. And that's basically my first memories are taking my dad's old Diffenderfer surfboard out to Flat Island and learning how to surf before leashes. So when you lost your board, you had to swim all the way from Flat Island back to the beach to get it. But yeah, good memories.
And what was it that first caught your eye, or who was it that even introduced you to windsurfing? Because that was really where you made your big name to start with, right?
Yeah, just being in the right place at the right time. My dad had gotten into Hobie Cats when they first came out, and he was racing. He was actually state champion of Hobie 14 5 times and Hobie 16 3 times. And my brother and I had a little Hobie 12, a little monohull Hobie that we raced. And I was, 8 or 9, 10 years old. And then one day at Kailua met the few windsurfers that existed in Hawaii. They were having a little race. I think there were 6 guys at the time that owned windsurfers. And they asked if I wanted to sail against them with my Hobie. And that was pretty much the start. They smoked me, and that was it. Just started going to the beach and hanging out with them. And one guy in particular, Mike Horgan, kept trying to teach me how. And I wasn't big enough to pull the sail out of the water. Back then, the booms were made out of wood. It was really a big, very basic rig, kind of like that. And so I would sail tandem with him, and then he'd let go. And I'd sail along until I'd fall, and he'd swim over and pick the sail up. And I'd go every day after school, the pestery little kid, and borrow their stuff, and slowly learned how, and saved up my life savings. We sold the Hobie. I took my half of the money and made paper shell necklaces. You remember that from the 70s? Made paper shell necklaces and sold those, and saved up and bought my first windsurfer in 1974. $340 complete.
Big investment.
Yeah, it was big for an 11-year-old kid.
Yeah. And so it was only just a couple of years after that you really made your mark. You won your very first world championship title in windsurfing as a young teenager, right?
1976 in the Bahamas. Yeah, I was 13. And it was kind of a funny story if you've got like 10 hours for tonight. If you had 50 windsurfers in your region, Windsurfer International would give an airfare to the first place person to the national championships, which that year were held in Berkeley, California. And we had about 30 windsurfers, something like that, in Hawaii in 1976. So we entered like dogs and wives and people that didn't even exist into the event to get more than 50 guys involved. And I won it and got the airfare to the nationals that way, because we were obviously 4 kids and a high school teaching salary of I think $15,000 the year my dad stopped teaching. We were not exactly rolling in money to fly me to events, so I took that free airfare and went to the nationals, slept on a friend's floor, and got second in the nationals. But the guy that won the nationals, Mike Waltz, already had a free ticket to the Worlds. So I got his free ticket to the Bahamas, and that was sort of the start of it. Went to the Bahamas and won there. And that got me a free ticket to the next year's Worlds.
So you were pretty ingenious with your paper shell necklaces, but perhaps that was just a business trait that you had somewhere in your DNA. Because what separates Robby from almost every other professional and world champion athlete on the water is that he went on to found one of the biggest ocean sport equipment companies in the world. He has Naish Sales and Equipment. But you started that at quite a young age, didn't you?
Well, I was sort of involved with the development of the gear really early on with my dad. When my dad quit teaching in 1980, it was to start making boards initially in our garage. And so we started working together and developed for different sponsors of mine over the years. But then I started Naish, as it is, the international brand, in 1995. And we started out just making windsurfing sails. And then it slowly branched out from windsurfing sails to windsurfing sails and boards and everything you need for windsurfing. I think for one is just loving what you do and never slowing down. I think as you get older, which I'm, I guess, kind of getting older, slowing down or getting injured would be really hard to come back from. And so injury avoidance has been key. And not letting yourself get dragged down by the complexities of life. That was how I used to always tell people when I was competing, and how did I stay competitive for so long. It's not letting life's complexities drag me in and keeping my sport the priority. And I look back and go, wow, life has gotten pretty complicated. But somehow I've managed to keep juggling the balls. And when I'm juggling, for sure I'm dropping balls, but I try to drop the ones that aren't so important. Right. And that's allowed me to stay like forward thinking and forward acting, and not wake up one morning and, you know, find out that I'm fat and can't touch my toes and I'm not riding any good anymore, because that would really suck for me, at least. Yeah. And so yeah, just keeping going and not allowing myself to slow down. You know, things like not drinking. It's not like I ever used to drink a lot. I never drank anything but beer, but I, like 3 years ago, just went, fuck, I need all the help I can get. I want to keep doing this. And what's it going to take to allow me to keep doing this as long as possible? Well, I don't need to drink, so I'll stop doing that. And, you know, that for sure helps. I've never done drugs or anything, but just trying to eat healthy and think healthy, and yeah.